Hey guys, this is Mark Goldberg from Mark Vlogs Watches with another terribly exciting episode for you today, and I want to thank you so much for joining me. Before we jump into the meat and potatoes of the content that I have planned for you today in our fireside chat, let me just say thanks for joining me. Do me a gigundo favor, hit the like on this button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it so we can do it again. Let's play the credits and then we'll jump into the video. Oh, wait, I can't do that. I didn't do the quick fist watch check. It's been a while since I made a video. I forgot my own format. And here it is. 3, 2, 1. Today, guys, I am wearing a Tudor Pelagos in nice, not shiny, gray, titanium of one grade or another, not sure which, but it's a fine watch. Let's get into the topic. Now, as you know, guys, I have a particular weirdness, or I meant to say fondness, for Rolex. It is the brand that most moves me. It is kind of like the I made it brand, and it's absolutely my favorite. But I recently made a video about comparing the role of fun watches in your collecting life, because here's the problem with Rolex. Well, actually, there's multiple problems with the brand. The first one is, even if they were relatively plentiful in availability, you can't just walk into certainly I can't walk into an authorized dealer and buy a $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 watch every day of the week, every month, or necessarily even every year. But let's assume I could. They don't have them, So I think the scarcity of the watches, the shenanigans that some of the authorized dealers play, especially in other countries, it's offensive to a lot of collectors. And therefore many collectors are switching out of the brand. But to me, a fun watch is something that I can spend with like discretionary money, not necessarily lunch money. Although, hey, you know what? Casio has a couple of $25 watches that I dearly love. I'll drop one of them in right here. You can pick this baby up for 28 bucks on Amazon with a 10-year battery. I mean, guys, that's a watch that you can buy for less than a bunch of drinks at the local pub. So fun watches to me are something that you don't have to really agonize over before you spend the money. And that's what my video was all about. And I think more and more the fun watch plays a role in the life of even the fine watch collector, the Rolex collector among us. And the reason for that is, you can't be buying Rolexes very easily these days, let alone for reasonable prices, because those prices are in the process of skyrocketing as we speak, number one. Number two, they're in terribly scarce supply. And number three, boy, honestly, it's getting a little bit dangerous out there to wear them depending on where you are, okay? So I've heard from a lot of people that they're not afraid to wear their Rolex for one reason or another. They are self-defense experts, or they carry, or whatever it is. But I'm not good at any. I'm not good at any of that stuff, and so I'm very cautious these days about where I will wear a Rolex. Okay, I want to read a comment from Bobby Ray that really struck me on that video. And Bobby said, "I have 20 entry-level homage watches and G-Shocks, and I wonder if I should have just bit the bullet and bought one expensive watch and not spent countless hours a day looking at watches." And Bobby Ray, I think that's a tremendous question. It's economical, it's philosophical, it's personal. That is a multifaceted issue that you mentioned right there. So first off, there's nothing wrong with G-Shock. In my opinion, G-Shocks, which are available, you can get them on eBay for 50 bucks, depending on the model, all the way up through 2,500, which, by the way, I would never spend on a G-Shock. But I have a couple $300, $350 ones that I really, really like a lot. But, to have a handful of G-Shocks, let's face it, the G-Shock brought something new to the table when it was invented by the Casio Japanese engineer, I believe it was in the 80s, who really set himself the goal of overcoming what had been massive problems in horology. The watches were not shockproof. If you dropped a watch, it was cooked. That was the end of it. For sure, you had to go to the watchmaker and have it rebuilt. And dropping a watch is not such an uncommon thing. If you got it wet and you got it magnetized, then there were just so many problems with watches that the G-Shock not only came out with their own aesthetic, but they also came out with new technology and a new look. So I don't think there's anything wrong with collecting a handful or even dozens of those if that's what floats your boat. What disturbs me about your comment is the 20 entry-level homage watches. there's a fine line between an homage and something that, is likely to get confiscated at the border, if customs happens to open that particular container. And I don't like them. I'm going to be straight up. I want something unique in design. So I have a fair number of micro brand watches. I have owned and sold a variety of them, from Zelos to Boulder. Loomtech is one that comes to mind. I have a couple of their watches right now. Like them very much. So I think you can have a whole lot of fun with micro brands that are really inventing their own aesthetic. I'm not very in favor of the brands whose entire deal is ripping off design cues from extremely famous watches. And for me, that includes brands like Janot, Squally, and Steinhardt. Now, I know some of those brands have finally branched out and come up with designs that are a little bit more unique to their own maison d'horlogerie, but quite frankly, the backstory of a heritage, it does not ring true to me for those brands and a couple of others. So I think wasting a bunch of money on Invictas and other watches like that, the answer is yes. What you should have done is saved your money, not gotten bored, not pulled the trigger too fast, and saved up for not that it has to necessarily be an expensive watch, but like a good watch, okay? This is 1/3 the price of a Rolex Submariner on the open market today. It's 1/3 of the price of it, and on some level, it's almost a better watch. I mean, it has better specs. Now, you might not like the aesthetic, but there are plenty of other options out there for 1/3 of what a Submariner would cost you, including the Omega Seamaster. And then real quick before we move on, this Tudor, listen to this. 60 click bezel. Each of those clicks is like a rifle shot. I gotta fix it now or it's gonna bug me. Oh, and then when it hits the 0 point, which is where it's at right now, it sticks. It's a little stickier at the 0 point. So yeah, for your 20 homage watches, you could have gotten something decent, and I wish you had. Actually, you know who talks a lot about that exact conundrum is a good fellow with a great watch channel, your friend and mine, Jeff McMahon, who started out buying watches on the Home Shopping Network. And he woke up one day and he had 50 or 60, I think it was, Invictas. And he realized that he didn't own one decent watch as he learned more and more about horology. And so I think his personal story goes that he sold them all off on eBay, recovered whatever money he could, and then he dove down the rabbit hole, with Seiko and other brands. But there are many levels of horology. I think the homage, it's like one step above your basic Amazon or Walmart watch. So I think those, in my personal opinion, are to be avoided. Now, I also think that it's probable that some of you are going to be offended by what I say. If you are, let me apologize in advance. I do think that there's room for every sort of taste, in the world. But the collection of a bunch of homages, I think, usually doesn't end well. So if you've been collecting homage watches and you got 20 of them and you're 5 years into it and you're thrilled and satisfied and happy, let me know that. But I think that this is a bad habit picked up by newer collectors who just get itchy and want to constantly scratch an itch. So if I could give you one piece of advice that I have learned over my own personal years in this journey, it would be slow down, take your time, figure out what you like, and when you first start collecting, stick to watches that really fill some particular area of horology that you're interested in, whether it be a square G-Shock, a dive watch, a chronograph. And if you really study on Facebook groups and in the forums and on YouTube, you'll quickly figure out which watches hold their value. Now, I'm going to wrap up with this. If you're going to collect watches, you are more than likely a lot like me. Short attention span, you get easily bored, and you have a little touch of OCD. And what that means is, sooner or later, you're going to look at your collection and you're going to go, I don't want this one, or this one anymore. That's why we talk about buying watches that hold value, retain value, so that you can sell and buy. Think back to when you were a kid, when you had baseball cards and you traded them, you sold them, you weren't just like constantly investing new money. if you are constantly investing new money in watches, you will quickly go broke and become divorced. Okay, guys. So my recommendation is you buy things that hold value and can easily be flipped. And believe it or not, even if you buy G-Shocks well, you can always sell them to somebody else, because there's always a guy who loves a G-Shock and is willing to give you 80 to 90 to 110% of the money that you put into it, depending on how you bought it. Take your time with this, guys. Figure out what you like. Avoid the junk that really is just going to get flipped but loses value. The worst thing as a collector that you can do is buy a bunch of watches where you're going to get rid of them at 20 cents on the dollar. And that is easy to do very accidentally. So by all means, enjoy your fun watches, but guys, don't be in such a rush. Buy some good watches in the mix, have a plan, and then follow the plan. Avoid junk. Don't wake up one day and have $10,000 in garbage. You'll feel really bad, because for that money, you could have had a vintage Rolex, right? Tell me what you think in the comments. If you're mad, let me know. If I offended your brand, let me know that too. And if you agree with me, I'm gonna need the support, guys, because there's gonna be a bunch of really angry squally collectors in the comments. Let's do this again soon. This is Goldberg. Peace out.